Commercial Construction Coffee Talk fans, thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction and Renovation magazine. Hope Thanksgiving, Turkey Day, fun with the family. Hope no one talked any politics. Actually, still eating some leftovers, like many of you, but they're probably getting, it's slim pickings. The dog's like, hey, could you give me some of that? They're looking at me. Did you eat enough turkey the last 3 or 4 days? Could you give me some of that? Anyway, hope everybody had, fun with family and friends. I was looking at Facebook and everybody, having good times, playing poker till the middle of the night or spoons or whatever you guys were doing out there. I saw some laughs out there. So it was good to see. And, football weekend, crazy stuff, Oklahoma State, wow. What do you think about the Buckeyes? My stepdad's a Buckeye, so I felt for him, he's texting me during the game and stuff. And, and of course, the Iron Bowl here right next to us here in Georgia and in Alabama with, Roll Tide and War Eagle. And, I feel terrible for the Tigers because they had that game won, but, what are you going to do? It's just the, the roll of dice. But we got the big game coming in Mercedes-Benz Stadium down here in Atlanta, Georgia this weekend for the SEC Championship with our #1 Georgia Bulldogs versus the Alabama Crimson Tide. Revenge game in my book because, the last time they were in that stadium, Georgia lost and, they should have won it. But anyway, I'm an athletic guy. I got my lacrosse, I'm sporting my DU Pioneers when I went to school. We just want to see good games, and have the refs stay out of it, let the guys play and let the best team win. And, I'm all for that. But, it's going to be crazy here in Atlanta, because, Alabama's so close and, Georgia's right up the road here in Athens. And it's going to be, it's just going to be an awesome weekend here. I haven't looked at the weather. It's inside. But they do open up the roof and it's been fairly warm here in Atlanta. So hopefully, the roof will be open and they'll have nice weather and everybody will have a great time down there. They do an excellent job. They've got the College Football Hall of Fame right down there by the stadium, and they'll do the SEC Championship. If you haven't been down to an SEC game, it's like another gig. SEC is king down here in the South. NFL, second fiddle. SEC, it is just unbelievable what goes on here at games. So Thanksgiving's over. Got Happy Hanukkah. I think it's day 3 or 4 right now, for the Festival of Lights. And you got Christmas coming up, New Year's, close 2021, and hello 2022. And the nature of the beast right now in construction is, God, where do I find help? And that's my intro to our guest today on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Out in the Bay Area between San Francisco and San Jose is Chris Brenchley with Surehand, the driving force for Rock the Trades. Am I correct, Chris?
Yeah, you got it.
Hey, it's nice to read the bios before I do these things. So, Chris, say hello to our audience of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk out west.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Great to be here, David. And I have to tell you, I'm a little envious. I love Atlanta. What a great city. And I tell you, I'm sure you've been there, but if you haven't, or your listeners, or if they're going to be in town, you got to hit Fat Matt's in Midtown. You want some of the best barbecue in the country and a little blues music to go along with it. It's a great way to go. But anyway, great to be here, man.
Yeah. I came here in 92. So I've seen everything get built up. I went through the Olympics, and now I live north up by the lake. And when I was here, this was the boondocks. I mean, there was nothing out here. Now, it's part of the suburb and it's just, it's exploded. And I've seen all the construction and, the trees getting done and the urban sprawl. But, the ATL, it really is the LA of the South. I got one of the biggest airports in the world. You can get anywhere you want. I fly nonstop. I'm flying to Phoenix for my reception. My first in-person reception coming up Thursday night since last February.
Oh, nice. I was just down in Scottsdale for Thanksgiving, so I just came back up from the Phoenix area.
Yeah, we're
gonna hit some good weather.
Yeah, we're doing it Modern Margarita, right south of the 101 in Tatum, and on High Street, nice little boutique area, and it'll be nice to get some pictures of people without masks on, and just in general, I think people. I haven't seen anybody. I told actually when I went to book my trip, I'm a Million Mile or a Delta. I went in to log in. I'm like, oh my God. I don't even remember what my password is. I had to look it up on my phone. I was traveling every week. And I went, oh my God, I don't know what it is. I went in there, and so, but I haven't been in the airport, so it'll be interesting to see what everything, goes on. And, but it'll be good to get back on the plane. And, my wife, she's like, are you going on the road anytime soon? I'm like, where would you like me to go? Okay. Where would you like me to go where people are allowed to do stuff,
Right.
And so finally, a couple of my buds like, come on, man, let's do this reception. There's a conference out there that we always do our event at, and they normally get about 1,500 people at this event. I think they've got 850 registered, so they're about 50%. I said, okay, we'll do it. And so I got a lot of my buds that I haven't seen, in a long time, maybe on Zoom, but nothing like person to person, in face to face, shaking some hands, fist pumps, call, whatever you want to do. But it'll be nice to see some people. And
it definitely feels good. I mean, we were down in Nashville, out in Nashville for NECA, Electrical Contractors Conference,
right.
and then down in Phoenix. Part of being in Phoenix was for the ASNT conference, the Non-Destructive Testing Industry Association. I'd say both those shows were probably at about 40-45% their typical attendance. But to your point, I mean, it was just great to be back out and chatting to folks face to face. It's just a completely different experience, frankly, from doing the Zoom thing for sure.
Oh yeah. But we here in the South, we really didn't close up, so we haven't seen masks.
It's remarkable the difference across the country. I mean, just having traveled recently, I mean, it is remarkable the difference in the regional I guess variations on the theme, if you will. It's good to get out there as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we're, Northern California is pretty masked up and pretty locked down, right? So, and it's been a really interesting experience to get out to other parts of the country where, it's just, it's just the vibe's been totally different. So
I had a GC on one of my podcasts recently, and she was from Australia, big contractor, she's an entrepreneur, a bunch of stuff. But she said she lived in the States, and she lived in California, Ohio, Florida, and Atlanta. And she said just those 4 states alone are like different countries.
Yeah.
The demographics, just the way people act, the regulations. I said, you picked, West Coast, East Coast, Rust Belt, and in the South, all different. I mean, it's just amazing. So, well, Chris, this is how it works. You got to tell your saga, your story, and tell us, where you grew up. You got any kids, dogs? Where you went to school, how you ended up here, and the floor is yours. So, tell us your story.
All right, let me see if I can boil it down. So let's see. Yeah, so as you said, I'm up here in the Bay Area, but I started out on the East Coast, Jersey boy.
Oh yeah,
We're exit 3 off the Turnpike. So I grew up just outside of Philly in a town called Washington Township, Turnersville School, that area. So basically halfway in between Philly and the Jersey Shore.
I'm from Philadelphia.
Yeah, so you and I could, you Pats.
Oh
Ginos,
no, believe me, I know Washington, Gloucester City.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
White Horse Park, Cherry Hill, East is West.
Yeah, so there you go. So yeah, we could trade some notes. So anyway, so that's where I came up, and then I spent I went to college, University of Delaware, fighting Blue Hen.
Yeah,
and went to from there went to Baltimore, started my career in Baltimore, and I've been in sort of digital transformation really since the beginning of the internet. I just had the good fortune of coming up in the mid 90s when this thing called the internet was just sort of lighting up. And pretty much from the very beginning of my career, that's been the world I've been playing in. And I got involved in the medical publishing world. And, over the course of the last 30 years have just moved steadily along sort of this digital pathway. And I'd say from a professional standpoint, my focus has been primarily on helping adult professionals find fulfillment, find success. And, I'd say the first 25 years or so of my career was more in the ed tech space. So more about e-learning, corporate training, how to, leverage technology to help people acquire new skills. And the last 3-4 years or so, I've been involved with Surehand, which is more on the HR tech side. And, from a business standpoint, Surehand, the way I kind of describe it to folks is we're Match.com for industrial employment. So we use advanced search, matching algorithms that kind of big tech to give industrial employers across energy, manufacturing, construction a faster, more cost-effective way to find best fit skilled trades talent for open projects or positions. And then personally, married, got a lovely wife, Kim. I've got 2 kids, grown. One's in college in Arizona up at Northern Arizona University. The other's in high school. And we've got 2 Furbies now. We've got Old English Bulldog and a English Blockhead Chocolate Lab. Sweet little Bubba's kind of keep us company. So that's my narrative. I ended up in the Bay Area just to kind of close that off in that, we stood Surehand up. We're venture funded by the good folks at Stanley Black & Decker, gang that puts, tools on shelves, your favorite hardware store. And I got into the trades and into the industrial sector primarily through Surehand. So I would say the bulk of my career has been in the white collar world, let's say. And for the last 4 years or so, it's been focused primarily on the blue collar workforce.
Mm-hmm. So talking about, labor, trades, looking back, 18 months ago, 2020 starts, cranes up everywhere, low unemployment, salaries, wage increases, just everything was booming. I did my first event. I had my summit in Jacksonville. I had my 10th anniversary gig, had the most attendees I ever had. Did my first event at a shopping center down in Coconut Grove from one of my cocktail receptions that we're doing every month. Then I'm in Milwaukee in March, looking for some hotels to do my retreats in the fall. And March Madness got canceled. Tom Hanks got the bug and everything got shut down, and it was only supposed to be about 3 or 4 weeks. So people said, hey, we'll do
hunker
that.
down and yeah,
we'll hunker down. So here we are 18 months later, and we're still, doing the stuff. So, but, depending on what state you were in, what the regulations were, if you were an essential business, construction kind of kept on going. Like here, there were 4 or 5 projects right here where I live in Swanee Sugar Hill that they didn't stop. I mean, those projects are finished now. And, but if you were in another state where they had tighter restrictions, let's say if you were doing a plumbing retrofit where people had to be close together, you might not have been able to get that job. But if you were doing a federal highway project where you're nice and open and, plenty of room, that project probably got done. So it depended on where you were. But the biggest thing is that right now, a lot of the contractors that I'll talk to or architects, even the brands, you go on to LinkedIn, everybody's hiring, but they can't find the people. And, if you're a contractor, PM, superintendents, estimators, if you're an architect, just everybody is having issues. I mean, just around here in general, the restaurants, we had a sign the other day. My wife took a picture of it. It said, please don't yell at our workers. We're low staffed. We're trying to keep the doors open and they're working their tails off. Just be patient, but don't yell at our workers or we're going to tell you to leave, because, and there's help wanted signs all over the place. I feel terrible for some of these, restaurants and small businesses because they just can't find the work. And what's it, 14 million jobs out there in the United States? I mean, I use Jubal for my kind of on my website for work. I think there were so many jobs that were open.
Yeah, I mean, there's just disruption across the workforce or the labor markets in general. And I think, when you think about the skilled trades and kind of our sweet spot from a business standpoint in terms of the folks we support and serve, it's one of the reasons why we launched our Rock the Trades Workforce Development Initiative, because even pre-pandemic, you have the scenario where when you look at the skilled trades, whether it's, craft labor, or you get into, welders or machinists or HVAC refrigerant techs, mechanics, and so on, you have this dynamic where the trades are essentially drying up. There's just not enough backfill of new folks entering the skilled trades to make up for the baby boomers that are aging out of the workforce. And, pick a trade, like, you mentioned the nature of construction through the pandemic, right? Coming into 2021, I saw some data from ABC, the Associated Builders and Contractors Association, that like 430 some thousand positions, right, within the construction sector were going to be open. Like the demand was going to outstrip worker supply And that was data from Q1 2021. And, we saw it in the energy sector in 2020 because oil and gas, which was one of our beachhead markets with Surehand,
probably
really took it on the chin, right? You had oil price wars back in Q1 between Saudi Arabia and Russia, and then the pandemic hits, demand drops, and that pretty much flatlined hiring activity in the oil and gas sector. And so for us, how the pandemic really affected Surehand and what we're doing is really two things. It accelerated our expansion into manufacturing, that sector this year. And as you and I were talking ahead of the show, next year, we're going to accelerate the turn into heavy civil and commercial construction, serving workers and employers there. But the other thing that it really did was it gave us a moment to sort of pull back and look at the problem. We started off trying to remove the friction from, work finding workers and vice versa. And that's good, noble work to be doing. We're going to keep doing that. But we realized that the real issue sat at the top of the talent pipeline. Again, there's just not enough folks getting excited about getting into the skilled trades. And we realized that, one of the drivers, frankly, it's maybe overly simplistic, but it's really powerful, is this idea that for the last 30, some will say 50 years, as long as you and I have been working, there's been this relentless prevailing narrative that is undervalued vocational training, what's now called career technical education, union apprenticeships, with this, 4-year degree by default, go in undeclared, you'll figure it out as you go, or this college first mindset. Nothing wrong with college, right? It's just not the best fit starting point for everyone. And somehow over the last so many decades, it's just sort of become this default position for people. We're really out there trying to reframe that narrative and restore blue collar career paths to that, their rightful position besides white collar career paths for folks.
Yeah. We were talking about my son, he, when he was in high school, he was one of the few of his buds that worked with his hands. I remember all sitting up in the bonus room in the house, and I could look down and I said, okay, you're going to end up in jail. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be, a barista, I'm not sure about you, and I looked at my kid, I'm like, you're going to be doing something with your hands. I don't know what, but it's going to be something. And I told him, I said, look, they don't do shop class. They don't even know what that is, but that was like one of my favorite classes when I was in junior high school outside in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up.
Nice. I had wood shop. I had plastics. Like I was making stuff, and look, I love to wrench on cars.
I still have my erector set, that I grew up with, a real one, a metal one, and
so making is cool. I mean, making and building is cool, and and that's kind of at the core of what we're trying to do. And we're bringing on all these industry influencers into the Rock the Trades mission, who are really, not only are they out there as fairly significant presences on social media, but they've got a vested interest. They care deeply about the survival and, frankly, the thriving of the trades, just because it's been so good to them. But, putting those stories, those faces, and those journeys and their narratives kind of up on the stage, turning the camera around and training it on the folks that are great examples of the financial reward and personal fulfillment that can come from a career in the skilled trades. That's really important and, frankly, central to what we're doing, because, I think that's part of what drives certainly a lot of young people today, but even folks coming out of the military or white collar folks that are just tired of being on Zoom calls all day. Just presenting those stories in a way that's not only authentic, but really, really compelling. I mean, these folks, whether it's a carpenter or a contractor building houses and, seeing that kind of content come to life, or those projects come to life, to welders or machinists or mechanics. I like to tell people, just look around you. There's no white collar world without blue collar workers. This Zoom call, not happening without the people that are pulling fiber along the railroad tracks for our internet, without the cell towers, without the computers being made, on and on and on.
Do you go into schools now, or do you play in that world?
So we're pretty early on with Rock the Trades. We just stood it up in April. of this year. And, these things take a little time to get moving, but we are engaging schools. So basically trade schools, community colleges, ultimately unions and their JATCs, like the training programs and the apprenticeship programs from those are the programs that are kicking out workers that employers need desperately, as you already pointed out. But then we're also pushing down into both the middle and high school levels, and then working on reaching out and working with the military as well, because those are basically strong feeders into the workforce from a skilled trade standpoint. And again, it's about getting out on these platforms where, young folks are consuming content. I mean, I'm not into TikTok. I'm barely into Instagram, right? And so, but that's where the action is. And so we're really, again, partnering with these influencers out there that are active on these channels and have already built, significant audiences and followings. And I think, that's a really good place to start to take the message to where these folks are.
It's funny you said about TikTok. Before the pandemic, I was an in-person print publisher. That's what I did. And when the pandemic came, I basically did a complete 180. We went monthly, went digital. I did a very, very small press run. I've stopped printing my magazine with my August issue. I no longer print the mag. You can get it printed on print on demand, but I was just like, you know what? I was talking to a contractor. I said, look, what do you have? 75 employees, 5 offices around the country. The magazine or 2 I send to your home office that's going to gain dust on your shelves, is that really doing much for you? I can do any other people that work for you see the magazine? And he's like, I don't know, unless they go to your web. I said, look, I can give you the link. I can tell you what the at, and I'm sure you have a blog or a newsletter. And, my kid doesn't even know what a magazine is. He didn't. He wants to look at it on his watch or his phone so I was like, but the biggest thing is that before the pandemic, I had a digital magazine for 15 years. I just neglected it. Then after the pandemic, I had an agency guy reach out to me to see how I was doing. And he's like, David, you got 15,000 pages of content. So last month I had 2.8 million people hit my website. I just looked at my stats last night. It's the end of the month, so it'll switch, but I'm probably going to be right around that same number again. I never had that kind of stuff. I got people all over the world. Once you're on the web, you're a global company. I don't care who you are. Even if you're a local little restaurant, anybody can find you on the web. So the biggest thing is that people through the pandemic that kind of were flexible enough to make that switch to the digital arena, even though, working with hands, listen, you got to have someone. You can't a robot's not going to do drywall. They might do other stuff down the road, but you're always going to need tradesmen. Like you said, you can't do business without labor. And the biggest thing is trying to get that phobia, like you said, about, I have to go to college. I have to get that piece of paper to work, where the trades that are out there, let me tell you, there are some plumbers that are millionaires, or electricians or HVAC techs. All of those things you need to
we see a lot of very happy tradespeople out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, and this is sort of a big part of what we're doing is, if we talked about kind of honoring and celebrating those tradesmen and women who are already out there as shining examples, right? Sort of it's one leg of the stool. The second is information, right? Information is power, content is king, as you're already pointing out. And there's just a lot of misperceptions out there, right? I don't think any of it's intentional necessarily. It's just we've gotten this sort of ingrained thing, which is like, everything from, the trades are for kids who can't hack college, or like working with their hands. Like, look, we all work with our hands. And don't tell me tradespeople aren't using their brains when they're on the job site or in the shop. Like that whole thing's just sort of a false narrative for me. But the other piece of it's just really the data and the information presented in a way is, if we've got this sort of cultural push to say, hey, the trades are cool, then you come at it with, the data and the information, which is like, okay, you look at one of the most striking sort of bits of data for me is if you look at the median age of trades folks, right? Whether it's construction trades or, welding inspectors and all these other trades, they're in the sort of mid to upper 40s, depending on the trade. And you look at the median age of the workforce across the US, probably high 30s. You look at the median age of a software engineer, It's 27. So
Yeah.
you can start to see that gap, right? And I think one of the biggest sort of false narratives out there is if you want to have a financially rewarding career, go get your college degree, come out and go down the white collar career route. And what most people don't realize, and there's a ton, dozens of studies on this, where if you compared, let's say Jane goes IBEW, gets her electrical apprenticeship, right? She goes through a 5-year program. She's earning while she's learning. She's not taking on any debt. And you compare like the earnings trajectory of Jane, and let's say Johnny goes to a 4-year school. By the way, he's probably going for 5 years, taking on a lot of debt, or his parents are taking on a lot of debt. And if you just look at their earnings, right? Because not everybody becomes a top attorney or a neurosurgeon or CEO of a company. Like you do that, you're going to get an ROI on your college investment, right? But that doesn't happen to most folks, right? I mean, everything from low completion rates to the tremendous debt burden that students take on going through college. And I saw some interesting data around, there's like $2 trillion in outstanding student loan debt right now. And some 35% of it, $600 billion held by folks from our generation. I'm early Gen X, early 50s, right?
Right.
So this is a lifelong debt burden. And then you compare that with data from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York recently that did a study that showed that 41%, almost half of all college graduates in this cohort that they looked at, recent graduate cohort, ended up in a job or a profession that they needed the degree for. So now this starts to hurt my head because you have this scenario where people are going to school just because, I guess it's the thing to do, take on a lot of debt to graduate only to not need that degree in the first place. And so they're behind the 8 ball from the beginning. And then you compare it to, again, like Jane, let's say she becomes a journeyman electrician or even a master electrician. She's going to have a great life. Like she's going to enjoy her work. She's going to make a lot of money. So I think that information is really important to, if we sort of tenderize the meat, so to speak, with the folks we call our rockers or influencers, you then have to follow that up with sort of the potatoes, in the sense that you got to have the information and the knowledge that people can really understand how fulfilling these career paths can be.
When I was growing up, my family's in construction. All right. So my cousins right now are running our business, 4th generation. It's called Pollock Steel. So we were steel recyclers. And since 1888, still in business today.
It's amazing.
So, but all of the grandsons, we all turned 16 and got our driver's license in Pennsylvania, outside of Philly. Took my driver's test and actually flunked my test in Limerick because the state trooper got me all flustered, and ended up the following week taking in this little parking lot in Westchester where I passed my test. But anyway, all the grandsons had to work in the scrapyard. So all my 2 cousins were all born in June. So I railed railroad tracks, I welded, I did acetylene torch, I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I ended up, cutting down asbestos off this job off I-95 outside of Philly. And I would go down to Margate. We had a house in Atlantic City, where all the shoebies would go every weekend. And, but I would come down and I had burn marks on my hands. And my other buds, they're waiters or whatever. And they're looking at me like, dude, man, I'm like, yeah, dude, I just brought home $400. Now back then,
yeah, it's a big deal.
It was a lot of money, and I'm like, hey man, here, but those were the ideals that, that I was brought up with. I went to prep school in New Jersey at the Petty School. So, I had Saturday morning class, I had study hall every night. I was that athlete. So I was a hockey player. Didn't even start playing lacrosse until my sophomore year. But I went out to University of Denver to play hockey and lacrosse. I was an economics major, but I really was an athlete, and I did the 5-year plan. I took a year off. I went up to Vail. My parents had a house up there. So I skied and worked. And, but when I looked at my son, I was very hard on him, trying to say, look, man, you got to do this, and I kept telling him, 20, 30 years ago, from now, you're going to look back and say, you were right about, doing all that stuff, better early than late, finish what you start, always leave everything out on the field. And, working with your hands, there's nothing wrong with it. You could be a millionaire before any of your friends are that are going to all those, hoity-toity schools and stuff. And, it's just that, it's an amazing thing, to look how I grew up and how the generation today, grew up, and that gap is there. And I've had other guests on. We've talked about shop class. Shop class, they need to bring it back. They should. It'd be nice to know that everybody knows how to use a drill, or what the difference between a regular screwdriver and a Phillips, or how to change a tire. I mean, there are people out there that don't even know how to do any of that stuff. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, and we're seeing absolutely, and you're seeing a lot of employers, particularly in manufacturing, in that sector. You're seeing a lot of employers, because the labor markets are so tight right now. They're actually providing on-the-job training and stipends to support third-party training to skill up folks who have an inch. So not only are these folks coming in, you hear a lot about minimum wage and and how hard it is to earn a living making minimum wage, but then you have all this demand for workers in the trades that are paying 2, 3, 4 times minimum wage in some cases, or it's a gateway job or path to make those earnings. You're not going to see those increases from a minimum wage position. But it's like when you see that so much demand over here, and that somehow the two sides are just missing each other. This is sort of I would say sort of the second big thing we're poking at, or ahas we had around the Rock the Trades initiative, right? If the first aha was this narrative that just needed to be shifted, right? It's just a perception issue, which perception issues, it's a marketing problem, right? You just need to, I think back to sort of like the Got Milk campaign, right? From the dairy board, got everybody thinking about drinking milk. I'll date myself. You go back to Nancy Reagan era, the 80s, just say no to drugs, right?
Oh yeah.
That was a meme, we're talking internet. That was a meme before memes were memes. So it occurred to us that, okay, well, you know what, this narrative that's out there, it's not a mystery. The last 5, 10, 20 years, I know that, there are a ton of programs out there at the federal, state, and local government level, sponsored by companies, brands, industry associations, labor unions, training, trade schools, community colleges, a lot of energy, money, intelligence, smarter people than me trying to go fix this problem. So why is it not getting any better? Why is it getting worse, in fact? So aside from the baby boomer generation issue, right, you've got those dynamics. It occurred to me that one of the problems with all those initiatives led by all those organizations, and we need more, the more the merrier, I'm not suggesting less, but they start off, or they come at the problem in a very siloed off way. So they're focused on a given industry or a given trade in a given region or a specific community or cohort within a community. So what happens is they're talking about this issue. They talk about it in slightly different ways. Everybody rattles off the data and the stats the same way, but everyone puts their own brand on it, or their own spin on it, their own messaging on it. And that's okay. But the problem with that is it starts to create a lot of noise out there, a lot of dissonance. It doesn't allow the issue to elevate into the national consciousness in the way that it should. And that's why when we sort of landed on this idea for Rock the Trades, that initiative from the very beginning, the intent was to make it a Big Ten initiative. Surehand is standing up, or stood up, the initiative. We funded it. We, did the brand development, all the, whatever, getting that thing off the ground. But the idea from the beginning was to not just bring in those influencers, folks we call rockers, but we're also bringing on industry organizations and companies, basically anyone who's got a stake or a vested interest in the health of the skilled trades. We're bringing them on as roadies. And the intent, the focus is to get folks weaving Rock the Trades, that simple expression, into their own messaging, their own platforms when it comes to them talking about workforce development, so that everybody starts to talk about this using the same language. And I believe that if we can get there, and we're already starting to see this with all the folks that are pinging us now, wanting to be a rocker, wanting to be a roadie, like, you stand these things up and it's like you're pushing an elephant up a flight of steps. But eventually you get over the hump and you're going down the steps with that elephant. It just starts to roll. And that's kind of the position we find ourselves in now. So I think getting that narrative really crystallized and focused on a call to action or a rallying cry, or something that has the potential to become a version of Just Say No to Drugs or Got Milk for the skilled trades is just a great way to get this message consistent and again, get it elevated into the national consciousness. I'm telling you, the skilled trades dry up. You're right. The robots aren't going to save us, right? Someone's got to build and maintain the robots, first of all. And anyone I've talked to in robotics and AI, and we run into a lot of that here in Silicon Valley,
Oh yeah.
they'll tell you the same thing. Like there's a lot of buzz around robotics and AI, and it's cool stuff. And I think
Someone's got to build those robots.
Right. And they're not going to necessarily replace the workers. They might make the work they're doing easier or safer. But in terms of removing the human fact, I mean, I think, you and I will have moved on to wherever before that happened. So I think we're looking at a couple decades of, at a minimum of saying like, look, the world around us is dependent on these industrial artists. That's what these folks are, the industrial artists of the world. And we just need to celebrate them. We need to, get more people involved in them. And whether it's, shop class, what we're doing with Rock the Trades and all the other great initiatives that are out there at the, national and local levels, we just really need to focus on it.
Well, if we can, Commercial Construction Coffee Talk or Commercial Construction Magazine can help your, become a roadie. Listen, I was a deadhead.
Yeah,
I went on the road. I like the word roadie. It's one of those things. So, if you were going to leave our audience out there with one positive thought or phrase, what would it be?
Well, look, I said it earlier, and I'll just hammer it again, which is, there is no white collar world without blue collar workers. We share an all collar imperative to, elevate the trades and restore them to, the position in our society that they should be in. And I'm, I have to tell you, I think you can see every single day now, pretty much. I don't care what media you're following, online, print, whatever the bent is, right? But you're seeing a lot of messaging, a lot of content out there focusing on the shortage in the skilled trades and why it's so important. And so, if nothing else, I feel like coming off the pandemic, one of the real positives of it, and it's been terrible for so many, too many. But, I would say that, you have this perfect moment in time, in a sense, where you have, we're coming out of this 18, call it maybe 24 months by the time we're feeling close to normal, kind of stall. You've got investment in infrastructure coming, or at least attention on infrastructure. And then you've got this, the labor force is naturally disrupted, as, we talked about. You've got the great resignation. People are rethinking their career goals, what matters to them, all these things. That combination of those three things coming off, the pandemic and COVID, I think that presents an amazing opportunity for the trades, for energy, manufacturing, and construction to really just be, present this really exciting and powerful narrative to get all collar folks, again, folks that may come from white collar backgrounds that aren't aware of all these things, interested in, excited about, and coming into the trades kind of full force as a first choice, not a fallback and not a happy accident. And, for me, I think if I were to leave your audience with one positive coming out of the, the challenges of the last 18 months or so, I think that might be one of them.
Awesome. I know you go by CB. So CB, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, not only to pick your brain, but also to find out about, Surehand and Rock the Trades, how would they reach out to you?
Yeah, so best thing to do with Rock the Trades is go to rockthetrades.com. You can see what we're all about, adding new rockers and roadies every week now. Social media wise, we're out there on Instagram and LinkedIn, primarily trying to focus on a couple channels, do them right. And then, just personally, I love connecting with folks. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there and just, send me a connection request. We'll start the conversation. And whether you're someone who's a great candidate to be up on our rocker wall out there representing your trade, or a potential roadie, an organization like yours that would be interested in joining the movement and the mission, those are the best places to start.
Awesome. For those of you who want to get me, you can always reach me at davidc@ccr-mag.com. We're always looking for editorial. We look at everything. We had 2.8 million people hit our website last month. I don't know, it's probably that same, even with the holiday in here. But it's like playing the lottery. I know some of you watch the episodes. I always say it. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. If you don't send me something, I can't post it or make it into the magazine or put it up on our social media. We look at everything and I reply back to you. You know, I'm up every night, 10 to 2 o'clock in the morning posting stuff. So send me something. You never know. Well, I don't do the magazine anymore, but you never know what might end up digitally or in ink. So with that said, CB, pleasure meeting you, and a fellow Philadelphian. You don't have a twang anymore.
I lost it. Yeah, after Jersey, it was then Baltimore, Arizona, now NorCal. Like everyone tells you, like, where are you from? You have no accent. So, well, here I'll leave you with this. I was actually born in Canada. So you want to talk about losing?
Hey.
You talk hockey and all that. Yeah, I only lived there for a few years. Never learned to skate before I came back to the U.S. But anyway, so yeah, listen, David, this was such a pleasure. Thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Here's a good story for you. So I'm a hockey lacrosse player. That's a Canadian gig. So every summer I went to hockey school up in outside of Toronto in Pickering, Ontario. It was actually it was a horse riding hockey camp. So I did 4 hours of horseback because we had stables when I grew up. I had horses and stuff, and I did 4 hours of hockey, and cleaned out the stalls, so, but anyway, people used to always tell me, hey, you were born in the wrong country, man. You should have been wrong in Canada, eh? But people, when they meet me, I still have my Philly twang, and they're like, you're not from New York. You're not from New Jersey. What is that? And I'm like, I'm from Philadelphia. Oh yeah. You guys. Yeah.
Schuylkill. I couldn't do my Philly anymore, but anyway, I think, who is it? I'm brain farting. Oh, Tina Fey does a ridiculous Philly accent impression. If you want to have a good laugh, so look that up on YouTube. It's very funny.
It's indistinguishable. It's not a Boston. It's not a New York. It's not a New Jersey. It's a Philly. It's a Philly thing.
It's a thing.
Water. It's water. I'm white.
Water.
It's water. It's WADER. It's water.
Right. It's bagel. It's Eagles. I could still pull it out. Yeah.
All right, CB. Well, listen, have a great rest of the week out there on the West Coast. Everybody out there, enjoy the big game this weekend, Dogs versus Tide. Listen, I'm a Yankee living in the South, so I got to go Dogs. But I just want the game to be close and enjoy it. May the best team win. Happy Hanukkah out there. Merry Christmas. Enjoy December's going to be here tomorrow. And then boom, before you know it, the holidays are here. And then close the books on 21 and 2022 is going to be an awesome year. And just stay positive. And, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and, we're all going to make it. Just, take one day at a time and make the best time of it. So with that, CB, say goodbye to our audience out there in Commercial Construction Coffee Talk.
All right. Hey, out there, be safe. As David said, happy holidays. And I'm with you 100%, man. I think 2022 is going to be a great year for all of us. And it's, I'll say every day is a great day to rock the trades. I'll leave you with that thought.
All right. And let's rock the trades. And for all you out there on Commercial Construction Talk, we will see you next time on another episode. And I'm signing off just below the Beaufort Dam by Lake Lanier in Atlanta, Georgia. CB, pleasure. I hope to meet you in person someday. All right.
Sounds good.
See you later. Bye.